Hey, what's going on, everyone? Joe Menza here. We're going to do a nice, lovely little landscape painting using a new paper I picked up actually over at Walmart. Not very expensive paper. This is called Canson Graduate. And one of the unusual things about this paper is that it's actually 117 pound, which means it's a little bit on the thin side. And yes, it does cockle, but for some reason after you paint on it, it kind of goes back to being flat again. Now you could pre-stretch it, something that I don't normally do, but I do like the way the paint lays down on this paper. It's different from what you're probably used to, which is the Canson XL, which is another paper I do like, but this does not have that grainy effect. This is almost like a Fabriano paper in the way that it behaves. Now here I'm using a little bit of some dirty yellow, some Indothrone, if I'm saying that properly, blue. This is Daniel Smith. Here's the paper that I'm using. And I'm using the Daniel Smith half pan 24 palette. And I added Indothrone blue. I removed a couple of the greens that were a little too staining and dyeing from that set. And I have undersea green on that palette. And I believe I added sap green, or it's already on that palette, I'm not sure. I'm just adding a little more of this Indothrone. I do like this blue. It can kind of work as a standalone, whereas ultramarine blue needs a little something added to it to really pull it off properly. And here I'm just putting a little bit down here where there may be some water. And I have that little bit of yellow in the back of the sky there, which gives it a little nice glow. And just dabbing away a little bit with the tissue, which is when it's always wet, you can dab a little bit away. If you have some drips or some runs, you want to make some clouds, always have a little paper towel handy. And this is basically just our backdrop for the scene. So we're setting the stage, as I always say. So I'll put a little mountain in the background. Take this small Ron Ranson brush. A little bit more of that blue. A little bit of red mixed in there. Just something to enhance the background. I'm going to put a stronger peak in front of that. So a little bit more strength in the paint. And that pushes the other mountain back a little bit. Now you can start to see a scene forming. So here I'm putting a little bit of, it's probably a little bit of a brownish, greenish color, that little bit of that undersea green mixed in there. I haven't washed my brush, so picking up other colors there. And here I'm just creating a little, just softening up the bottom of that mountain, create a little bit of fog effect. You know, just have something in mind, put it to paper. Don't worry so much about how good you are, how good the painting is. Just that you're having fun as you're going along. I can't stress that enough. This is a fun hobby. You get yourself a pad of this paper. Maybe not this paper is not good for a beginner because it is thinner. But they do have B paper at Walmart. I know a lot of people are going to be shopping at Walmart. It's one of the major chains, and they have a really nice art aisle. And, you know, you could go to Hobby Lobby. They have their, you know, equivalent, but it's all Hobby Lobby brand. This here, you can get the Royal Langnickel. You can get that fan travel book. There's so many options there. And, of course, if you want to go acrylic and oil, they have that too. I want you to spend as little money as possible and have the most enjoyment of fun. And later on, if you get really serious, you can buy Daniel Smith and you can buy Arches paper. I'm not entering these in any contests or doing anything fancy. I'm doing this to show you the fun and encourage you and inspire you so that you pick up a brush and I pass the enjoyment on to you. So there's really no need for me. And if I stop and I take 2 hours to do a painting and paint something perfect, whatever, if that's even possible, that's going to be possibly discouraging. It's not going to show you. You need, it's better to watch somebody who's just showing you how you can do something. I don't have to be the best at it to show you what can be done, and then you can work on being the best at it. I'm just here to give you the start. Now I'm making, with my fan brush, I'm making some evergreen trees. And you'll see, you notice I pulled down on the brush to create, because I know there's going to be some water down there. And I did something a little different I don't often do, but I'm taking the Ron Ranson brush. This is a dry brush, by the way. I have several. And I have one that's not been rinsed in water or anything. And I'm taking that dry brush and I'm pulling down the wet paint. Now, I can't say you can do that on every paper. It might smear on other papers in a way that's objectionable, but you can spray it a little bit with your spray bottle. I'll do another pine over here. I've really been trying my pines a little bit more to make these arms on the trees. And sometimes they get too fat. They start looking more like Christmas trees, which is okay. I like Christmas. Put another one there to offset the other side so there's a different amount on each side. Don't want it looking too much like bookends. But I do want a little bit area open in the center. So you put a little dark in there. While it's wet, you can do a lot of things. You can highlight, you can melt other colors into other colors. So many ways you can do this. You don't have to put your colors on this heavy either. If you want more of a watercolory effect, go a little lighter. There's me with my dry brush again. That brush you just saw with the brown handle is another goat hair brush that I actually had made for me. They're very soft. They're not as firm as the Ron Ranson brush. I'm still working with them. There's a little bit of that raw sienna yellow ochre combo back there. A little burnt umber, a little burnt sienna. That's good for the ground colors, the dirt. And a little bit of a color called buff titanium. It's kind of like a yellowy white, something that Daniel Smith has on the pan, and I started working with it. It's not a white. It's definitely a light. It's exactly how you would think. Titanium like a white, but buff color. See how it creates that nice ground color? And then in with some darks, Payne's Gray, or that Indothrone mixed with Payne's Gray. If I'm saying it wrong, let me know in the comments. I should have probably looked up some pronunciation first, but oh well. Pulling down some of those darks now. Again, with that soft brush. And then dragging that across, and that creates some water sort of ripple effects. And to my marker, whatever's sharp, I can make like little scratches and things tree trunks. Isn't that a nice little scene? All within a few minutes. Here's my plastic. I normally use a credit card back, in scratching rocks, but if you can get a plastic palette knife, it works really well too. Metal palette knife is just too harsh, too sharp. Again, coming back with that fan brush and adding some darks. As your painting starts to dry, you may notice it lightens up, or sometimes it darkens up, but if you feel you need a little more darks to help accent things, that's when you start to put it in there. See how it contrasts? And we'll put something along the shoreline here. Just dabbing in some darks. Just so that water doesn't leak out of the painting. Something to hold it back, hold it in. Again, going in with the fan brush. Stiff nylon fan brush. Those are what I like to use, as I've showed you in some of my other videos. And then adding a little lemon yellow on top, straight from the tube. Now, watercolors are expensive, especially a Daniel Smith type brand. You use it straight from the tube, you're going to go through a lot of paint. People say, why don't you use acrylic? I could, but it just doesn't have the same feel, the same effect for me. Adding just little accent colors to the back there. Same reason I don't use oils. It has its drawbacks. They take too long to dry, or they smell bad. I will be using some water-soluble oils in the future, but again, it still doesn't feel the same. I had one I did with some oils. It took forever to dry. I laid it out in my garage and just left it sit there. It was like tacky after 3-4 months. And I like painting on paper. I've done some acrylics, and I've done them on canvas, but I prefer to do acrylic painting on paper. It's just such a better, there's no slow pressure. It's more fun. You can still frame them the same way. Just touching up these trees a little bit. So when you get to the point you're almost done, you stand back and you look for little things that you can enhance. You don't want to fuss, but if you can make little minor improvements, that's okay. Gave that a little spray. There's a little hot spot of blue there, and just blended that with my dry hake. Just so that's not something draws your eye there. And pull down a few more little reflections while that's wet. Take the clip off. I'm going to take this out of the... I like to paint and keep them in my pad. Scrape a few more little things in there before it dries. A few little sticks and things. Yeah, I think we have a very nice scene here. See, now I've taken yellow, I've taken lemon yellow and I've liquefied it just enough so it doesn't run on the end of this, and I'm just melting it into the surface of these trees. See how it puts a little highlight on there? Been experimenting with that a little bit, just to give a little dimension to the trees. You can always go back and forth a little bit. You don't want to do too much, but you can always go back and forth. And I put a little more dark back in there. Little mishap with the yellow there. That's okay, just rub it out. And we'll rip that out of the book. Throw the book off to the side, or the pad rather. And we'll take a look at it. You can see it's kind of bending a little bit, the paper. A little bit of a cockled effect. Let's look at it with a mat on it. There's the finished product. A little bit of a close-up. I think it turned out pretty well. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.